are you at right now?
I'm in North Carolina.
Okay.
Yeah, I have a rehearsal. I have a show at the end of the week or on Friday, so I'm here rehearsing and then I'm flying out on Wednesday. So
busy.
That's right.
Do you ever sleep?
Yeah, I try to. Yep. Yep.
Have you recovered after your UK tour, and how'd you like it over there?
Yes, the UK tour was awesome up until when I got sick. That was rough.
I heard
the shows were rough. But it was just some random. It was like I guess it was just a viral infection because it wasn't just me. Like one of the singers got sick and the drummer and his wife. And so it was like just something that kind of went rampant through the band. And it was rough. But other than that, it was fantastic. It was such a blast. You know, that was my first time over there and it was such a trip.
Did you like find any favorite foods over there? Like what's something like you went to my homeland, so I'm curious how you liked it.
Yeah, it was, the food was good. The only issue I had with the food was that it was really heavy. A lot of it was kind of like based, bread based with like the shepherd's pies and the fish and chips. And there's like a lot of kind of beige foods. The Indian food was good. And I mean, listen, the shepherd's pie stuff was awesome. I had a really great shepherd's pie in Glasgow.
But did you have real shepherd's pie?
I guess. I mean, I don't know. I mean,
because if it's not, shepherd's pie is made with lamb meat. If it's not made with lamb meat, made with beef, then it's a cottage pie.
So I had two. So that's a good point. So I had one that was lamb and then one that was chicken. So I did have the traditional one, and then I had whatever was the kind of the mock up, that basically tasted like Thanksgiving. But honestly, is what it tasted like. So. It was good. I had a blast, but yeah, the sick part was not fun. But other than that, it was fantastic.
Yeah, I talked to Karen. Obviously, I ran into her on the plane. We ended up being on the same flight. Go figure. And she was at the London show, and she said, yeah, you could definitely tell he was struggling at the end. But she said, you still nailed it. Just like you normally would. She's like, yeah, I could tell he was not feeling good. But
yeah. Honestly, that's probably the worst. As a performer, that's probably like the worst feeling is not feeling well and then having to perform because you're not doing 100%. And so that's kind of like, it's frustrating as a singer because you know what you can do. And then you're when you're sick, you're very limited to what you can do. So you have to kind of work around those issues and make changes and kind of conform to whatever way you're feeling. The worst thing you can do is push it. That's the thing, is that when you get sick, is that pushing it is just the worst possible.
That makes you more sick, right?
No, it wouldn't make you more sick. It would just as a singer with your voice, it would make it sound worse, So it's you play the game of having to hold back a lot. So that's basically what I was having to do, those last 3 shows and not doing it full tilt like I did maybe the first 3 shows. So,
yeah, it was the second one. That one was pretty awesome.
Yeah. What was the second show? The second show was
Birmingham.
Birmingham. Yep.
Yeah, I love that video.
Yep. So we'll definitely it's not been announced yet, but we will be back. We're going to do another tour next year, later in the year, I think towards the fall. So the dates haven't been announced yet, but they are in the process of being routed and worked on. So it'll be great.
I'm sure they'll love that because everybody that I talked to that went to a show just said how fantastic it was. Obviously, I've seen it a bunch of times, and what I love about it.
I think that's what's cool is that it's a different experience from what I've perceived from the stage, is that the audience is a different energy in the UK States. In the States, it's like everybody's kind of more lax and, it's kind of just sitting down and, that kind of thing. Whereas the UK, it's more of like people really love it and they enjoy it. It's a different, it's a different, that music and that artist holds a different place in that culture than he does in the States. So that was kind of the cool thing to see, the kind of difference between the US audiences and then the UK audiences. So
yeah, I think it's just because we're raised on being loud. We watch so much football, and WWE said that when they went over there for Money in the Bank this year, that the crowd is just insane. Like they're just so loud. So yeah. Speaking of loud, I remember speaking of loud, I remember an interview you did on Huckabee and said that you were always really loud as a kid. But when did that kind of change into you wanting to pursue that as a career, like in music?
That's a good question. I think that when I was younger, I was a very loud, boisterous, over the top kid. And
those are cute pictures you posted, by the way.
Say what?
Those are cute pictures you posted, by the way, the other day.
Oh, my family stuff. Yeah, that they had dug out. I thought that was funny. So when I was younger, I was very loud, over the top, just class clown, life of the party, like just wanted to be, it was very entertaining. I was basically like a born to be entertainer, from right out of the gate. So with the singing kind of came later in my life when I was in high school. And so a buddy of mine, it was my guitar player. But also my dad especially was very vocal about me singing, and about there was something there that should be, developed and whatever about singing and whatnot. So that kind of started. So when I went to go into high school, my buddy, who's now my guitar player, been my guitar player for many, many years, Josh Sawyer.
He just had a baby, didn't he?
He did. Yes, he did.
Yeah.
He had a girl. Yep. It was through a mutual friend that asked me to come sing for his band for the talent show. And so, I kind of was just joking and singing around school and all this stuff. And they're like, yeah, you can really sing. You should come do this. So I went to the house and sang. And then Josh was like, oh, wow, you're like freaking amazing. And he brought his parents down and was like, this guy's like, incredible, blah, 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 blah. So that's kind of what started that path into music. And then when I actually did the talent show and got the response from the crowd and everything, it was like, okay, this is what I, want to do for the rest of my life. So that's kind of what started it. And I guess the main thing a lot of people say is that the first thing right out of the bat is like, his voice is powerful. He has a powerful voice. Mm-hmm. I think that there's the gift of that is that I was just blessed with a very strong, larynx. So
it looks like effortless, like watching you on stage. So when you're belting out those big notes, it just looks, I'm sure it's not effortless, but
as I've gotten older, it gets a little harder, but it's still there. Yeah.
But as someone watching, there's a lot of notes that, when you're singing, it just looks effortless. Like, it's just like, oh yeah, I'm just up here singing, which like I said, I'm sure it's not, but, so then why pick Idol as a platform?
Idol was just so this is kind of this is a pretty, kind of long-winded story, but that when I got out of high school, I was in a really bad accident where I was run over by a car and was in the hospital for, I think, like three something weeks or something like that. And so on the TV, I was basically like kind of bedridden. Idol was on TV, and so I watched the show. And I was like, oh, I think I could do this. I could go audition for the show. And so after I got out of the hospital, I think they were holding auditions that summer. I went and auditioned in 2010. Was it 2000? Yeah, 2010, and made it to Hollywood Week, got cut, and then went back in 2011, auditioned, made it a little bit farther into the preliminary rounds right before the live shows, got cut again. And so then I took a year off and just kind of basically like kind of honed my, craft or artistry, whatever you want to call it. I had a band, an original band, and we recorded a record. We kind of did some stuff. I was in a cover band. I was doing acoustic gigs. I was kind of doing a lot of different, local, local shows and that kind of deal. And was kind of just doing my own thing. And so at the end of 2012, 13. Yeah. End of 2012 and then into 13, they were having auditions again. And so my dad was like, hey, what do you think about going and auditioning again? I said, well, I'm working on this band and whatever, and that kind of deal. And he was like, I think that you should really think and reconsider. And, he was like, I guess as a piece of advice, he was like, don't ever not do something and then look back, 20, 30 years or something and say, oh, I regret, not doing this. I was like, okay. So I thought about that. And I was like, okay, well, I'll just do it one more time, and then lo and behold, that happened. And then got on the live shows and then won the whole thing. So there was never really going into it like, oh, I wanted to win the show or, oh, this is like, it was kind of like basically a very kind of second thought. Or it's almost like an afterthought. It was like, yeah, I'll go do this. Done it 2 other times, made it decently far, and now I'm gonna, we'll do one more time. What's it gonna hurt to do one more time? And then there you go, and then won it. So
and you ended up winning it, and you were a baby.
That's right.
22, 23?
Yep, 22, 23. Yeah, I was 22 and then turned 23 towards the end of it. Yep.
So you've got TSO, you got involved with them. Obviously, you got involved with Celebrating Meatloaf, and then you have your own band. How do you balance all of that time and kind of stretching yourself between all of those different bands that you're with? And when did you kind of get involved with them? And what kind of happened there, especially with, Celebrating Meatloaf? How'd you get involved with them?
Well, TSO, out of the 3 gigs, and first and foremost, my own stuff comes first, over the Meatloaf stuff, which is, but the Meatloaf stuff is great because I love Meatloaf and love Paul and the band. I mean, they're incredible musicians. And I mean, that's what I'm getting ready to go do this weekend is my own show. But the TSO stuff is fine because it's just 2 months out of the year. So it's like that time is always blocked off for TSO.
Yes.
Like it's not, it's like those months are always penciled for TSO, always the same every year. It's never different or trying to schedule this on top of this or schedule that, what I'm saying? It's a very simple, easy, fix in the grand scheme of like my year or scheduling or whatever. The Meatloaf stuff and my own stuff, it's a pretty easy balance because it's kind of like, I do about the same amount of stuff that I do on my own that I do with the Meatloaf stuff. So it's pretty evenly balanced for the most part, like live touring. Like, and I switch it up. Like Paul's coming to play lead guitar for the show this weekend because obviously Josh has had this newborn baby and whatnot. And it's going to be great because Paul's great and he comes in and kills it, whether it's with his Meatloaf stuff or with my own stuff. So it's great to work with these other guys outside of my own realm of my solo music, because my solo music is like traditional Southern rock, blues rock.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, so the Meatloaf stuff is more theatrical, Broadway, rock opera, kind of that kind of stuff. So it's great also for me as an artist because for myself personally as an artist, that's all a part of me. So like the Meatloaf stuff is a part of me just as much as the blues rock stuff is because I love Meatloaf and love Fat Out of Hell. And, as a fan, it's great because it's like, oh my God, I get to front Meat's band and do this and kind of carry on that legacy and, and got to work with Meatloaf and that kind of thing. And so, and the way that kind of all was brought about was that Paul reached out to me a couple, like 5-something years ago and said, hey, Meatloaf is basically kind of, he's retired from touring, he physically can't do it. And we want to still go out and play. We've gotten his blessing to do it. You're the guy for this. He's approved you. He loves you, blah, 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 blah. And so that was kind of the very simple. Yes, I will do this. So that's kind of where that, that side of me is. The Southern rock, blues rock stuff has been there since the beginning of my whole musical career. It's just now getting out to play it, doing the record with Jason Bonham, which was great. Obviously I've got a new record coming out. This is a whole nother thing with Tyler Bryant that we haven't even announced yet. That's going to probably be dropping next year, which is a whole new, it's a different sound. This is actually going to be like more of a band, not a solo thing. So this is going to be a different vibe altogether. It's going to be more of a heavier vibe. It's going to have more of like a Soundgarden-esque vibe, which obviously I'm a massive Chris Cornell fan and have been compared to him, multiple times. And then we're going to be releasing some new singles for the Ramblin' Saint stuff. So it's just to keep me creatively busy, because I have constant ideas about doing stuff, whether it's the blues rock stuff, and this whole thing I'm doing with Tyler Bryant. This was an idea that I had, that I pitched to him. And so had this whole.
Is that the one about the loosely based on the Book of Revelation?
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah. So that was, I had the whole album kind of the titles written out and said, hey, here's this idea. Here's the album titles. Check this out. What do you think? He said, yeah, this is great. Let's do this. So that's going to happen, or the record's done. It's 9 songs, fully recorded, mixed, whatever. So that'll come out next year. And then I've got some other solo stuff, like with the Ramblin' Saint stuff, that I've got that are demos that I want to record, probably that I'll record at the top of next year. So yeah, it'll be a bunch of music coming out. And it's going to be a total blast.
Awesome. Okay, let's do some rapid fire stuff. Try to throw you off a little bit and make you laugh. Okay, Coke or Pepsi?
Coke all the way, in a glass bottle.
Okay, beach or the mountains?
The beach.
Well, then that probably answers my next one. Sun or the snow?
I mean, that's tough. So that's the thing, is like, I like the sun, but I also like the snow. So I guess in correlation with the other answer, yeah, I guess it would be sun. Yeah, but I do love the snow in the mountains.
Are you an early riser or a night owl?
I'm a night owl.
Dracula or Frankenstein?
Frankenstein.
Rob Zombie music or Rob Zombie movies?
I guess it's music. Yeah.
Godzilla or King Kong?
It's no brand. It's Godzilla.
There's a new movie coming out.
I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very excited.
Let's talk about horror movies and all your love and passion for that. How did you get into horror? Like, what is your number one favorite horror movie of all time?
Number one is Creature from the Black Lagoon. That's the zenith for me.
Why?
I have no idea. It's just, I guess because when I was a kid, that movie came on TV and was just enamored with that monster and thought it was the coolest thing ever. And I just love the suit that the woman made for the actor. And I just really thought it was I love his fingers, the long claws with the webbing in the claws. And I just thought it was the coolest thing ever. And I mean, I've always had an obsession with monsters and monster movies. And just as a kid, I love, these are old movies, but like Seven Voyages of Sinbad and Jason and the Argonauts and Clash of the Titans, which had these really old stop motion animation creatures. And it's just like this little frame by frame, animation that this guy did, Ray Harryhausen, that did all these incredible movies. But the stars of the movies were not the actors, but it was the monsters themselves. So that was what carried the movies. So I really just, fell in love with those films. And I mean, this has been like that since I was a kid. It was that, Godzilla, Creature from the Black Lagoon. I mean, I also love horror as well. I'm a big Evil Dead fan. I love Sam Raimi's movies. Love the Night of the Living Dead trilogy, Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead, Planet of the Dead. And also the stuff that Tom Savini did and Rick Baker and those really badass, makeup effects artists. And just, yeah, I really don't have an answer. It's just that I've just been obsessed with it since I was a kid, and that it's obviously I'm a man child, so it's translated into me being an adult. And also being an adult and having money and just blowing it on stupid stuff like Creature from the Black Lagoon action figures and Godzilla stuff and like.
Well, now you have a painting in your studio.
And painting, which I freaking love. It's really. I guess honestly, I guess you could describe it as a hobby. It's like a hobby kind of thing. Yeah.
There's another one that's coming to partner with your Creature from the Black Lagoon painting, actually.
Oh,
it's a Jason one.
Oh, Jason Voorhees. Yeah.
Yep.
Yep. Yeah. That's
so
awesome.
Next time I see you, I'll have to give that to you. But yeah, he did a little.
Awesome. But that genre and and it's not necessarily just horror, but sci-fi, fantasy. I've always also been a big reader. I read a lot because I travel a lot, so I don't really watch movies on the plane, which is kind of hard to believe. I just read. I read on the plane. I read, in the car, to the Uber to the hotel. It's like those kind of things. Like that's, and I guess I'm very. They call it like left brain thinking. If you're a creative, like your left brain is like always firing on all cylinders. So those images and characters and stories really, captivate me and keep that kind of like the juice going creatively. So
best horror movie you've seen in the past year?
The best horror movie.
So that book was a good thing to give you then in Birmingham.
Which book? What?
The book I gave you in Birmingham. That was a good present to give you then, since you're a reader.
Oh, the Tom Savini book.
Yeah.
I've seen all those movies. I've seen all the old stuff. Yeah. If you're talking like, but I can tell you right now with Tom Savini, Creepshow is probably out of the Creepshow, Dawn, and Night of the Living Dead. Those are like the top three from him for what he's worked on. I mean, those are like awesome movies. But newest horror movie. I guess it's actually a couple. It's not just one, but there's a series on Netflix called Cabinet of Curiosities. That's like it's kind of similar to a Creepshow. It's like an anthology horror. I don't know, stories or short stories or whatever. And there was one that I liked that was really cool called The Viewing. That was really cool and kind of creepy. It had like an old throwback John Carpenter kind of vibe to it. And so there was the first two episodes had kind of like an H.P. Lovecraft storyline that was really cool, cosmic horror that I liked a lot. That's in the past, couple of months, that's really kind of been some of my favorite newer stuff. All the old I've seen a million times.
Yeah. What about the worst horror movie you've seen in the past year?
Worst horror movie. I don't know. Some of them, like, if they're not good, I'll just forget about them. I don't even know. There was something I was watching that I was like, I can't even watch this. Like, it was just so boring. I don't even remember. It was like some like late 80s, 90s. It might have been a slasher movie. I don't even remember. It might have been called like The Mutilator or something. It was not even, it was crap. Yeah.
Have you watched Skinamarink yet?
I have not.
I'm really curious to know how you feel about it, because it is very, people either love it or they don't.
They hate it. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually, it's cool that you brought that up, because I remember actually I was on tour with TSO and I was on TikTok, and the trailer for that, whoever did the marketing for that movie should get like a multi-million-dollar raise, because I was just scrolling, it came up in the feed and it was the trailer. Mm-hmm. And it was like the old grainy film, the film stuff, which I love all that stuff. and that the narrator was like, in this house, and then his voice changed, in this house, and it got lower, and I just got chills running up the back of my butt crack because I was like so down, and I was like, this looks crazy, but I haven't had a chance to watch it. There's a couple movies that I have on a list that a short list that I want to watch that I have not been able to watch yet, but that's one of them.
And I hope Host and Dashcam are on that short list too.
Say it again.
I hope Host and Dashcam are on that list too.
Are those newer horror films?
The ones from Jed Shepard.
From who?
Jed Shepard.
Okay, I have to check him out. Yeah.
So we did an interview with him, and it's still like my favorite interview that we've done on our channel to date. We planned on this, 30-minute interview, and we started talking about horror movies and all the people that he's worked with, and 2 hours later we're still sitting there talking about horror movies, and we're like, Jed, do you have to go? And he's like, yeah, no, I'm good. So
so Host and Dashcam, is that what it's called?
Yeah, Host it's really applicable. Jed is really good at thinking outside the box. So, and that's why I like Skidamarink, because it does leave it to your interpretation. And Jed is really good at thinking outside of the box. And so Host came out during the pandemic, and it is a seance over Zoom. And it's incredible. Like it just fit with the time so well. And the cinematography in that, it's just brilliant. And it was just that real life found footage, really cool movie. And then Dashcam is based on somebody else that he had found that was actually doing Dashcam videos like while they were driving around. And he thought, let's put this into a horror movie. So she's driving around, and it's a real person that does this, all the time. And she ends up picking up some kind of demonic force, and it's incredible. The cinematography and everything, it was just amazing. He's very, very good at thinking outside the box. There's a rumor floating around that he is doing a remake of Blair Witch Project, which I think he would be
really into the found footage stuff, the kind of hyper realistic, that kind of thing, the real. Yeah. Okay, cool.
Yeah, he's
check that out.
Yeah, he was such a fun dude to talk to. He's like I said, we just sat there 2 hours later and we're like, oh, oops.
Yeah. I mean, horror films is like, it's I think the reason why a lot of people love those type of movies and that kind of that genre is that it's just like, it's an escapism. It's not real. It can't hurt you. So it's a thrill ride, to kind of live vicariously through these characters or whatever. And like, it's like that kind of dance with death kind of thing where it's not real, but you're kind of like, it's basically just like a thrill ride. It's like a roller coaster. If a well-made horror film is like a roller coaster in the sense that it takes you on a whole up and down, kind of thing. And, it's like, it's a very intense thing if it's a really well done. Mm-hmm. And I'm talking like true horror film, like really scary stuff that you don't like. For me, like that kind of film, like Hereditary, that's a horror film for me. That was like, when I saw that in the movie theater, I was like, holy shit. Like,
I haven't seen that one.
I'm not seeing Hereditary. It's terrifying. So it's like, it's there's the images that stay with you and that kind of thing. And that's kind of, again, it's just all fantasy, make believe kind of stuff, but it's I think it taps into like a primal thing of people that like, oh my God, like you're like dancing around on the edge of like, death and all that other crazy shit. But yeah, I love it. I love horror. I love science fiction. Love fantasy, love monster movies. I'm just a total nerd. Proud of it too, baby.
You should be proud of it. So I'm curious. I know you are restricted on time, but I'm curious about this.
Yeah. I can do like maybe 10 more minutes, and then I gotta. Yeah.
So I'm curious about this album that you're making loosely based on the Book of Revelation. That's not exactly an easy an easy book to make a record out of. It's not Psalms or Proverbs, but why pick that one?
Yeah, well, I mean, and this is exclusive with you because this is the first time I've talked about it, publicly, outside of posting kind of like an Instagram.
A tease is what that was.
Tease, yeah. Kind of tying back into the horror stuff and that kind of thing. There's a lot of really cool, scary stuff, in that book,
Yeah.
And being a fan of monsters, and there's like the beasts and that kind of thing, and just that kind of triggered it for me with that imagery. And I also too, as well, with some of my music, and I guess it was because of that I was raised Baptist, that there is like this kind of, and I use a lot of lyrical stuff like that with religion and stuff like that, but that there is like, it's there, like that upbringing and that kind of stuff has been ingrained into my kind of musical DNA with gospel music and rock and roll and that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. But the concept about it was that I had this idea, and it's just very loosely based. Like, it's not like it doesn't go there, but it's very loosely based. And the titles of the songs, like I'll tell you the titles is that we have a song called Black Angel. We have a song called Devil at Your Door. We have a song called Brimstone Boogie. We have a song called Nature of the Beast. We have a song called Speaking in Tongues. We have a song called Afterlife. We have a song called Heart of Stone. We have a song called so then we have the kind of grand finale of the record was this instrumental piece that I presented to Tyler, that I said that basically is about the end of the world. About, in the book, there's the star wormwood, there's the locust, and then there's Leviathan, which is like kind of the seven trumpets or whatever the phases of how the world ends, is that you have these things that come to the earth and whatever. And so star wormwood is about the falling star, but like an asteroid hitting the earth. And so that was so I kind of gave Tyler these templates, and that's kind of where the record really kind of puts its foot firmly in that ground of the concept. Mm-hmm. Everything kind of just loosely based around the idea. The last song is three. It's like a progressive rock track where there are no vocals except for some background vocals, and it's all instrumental. It's like 6-something minutes long, but that is a musical interpretation of what happens. So Star Wormwood, Locust, and Leviathan. And so musically, I gave him these templates to go off of when he was composing the song with the drummer. And so it's really cool. And I gave him all these different things about, or for example, like the Star Wormwood section, I gave him these templates of the soundtrack to The Day the Earth Stood Still and the soundtrack to Sweeney Todd, and that there's an overture at the top of the show that's like this big instrumental, dun, 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 dun. It's like this big thing. So I said, I want that to be the start of the song, and it goes into that. And then Locust, the obvious choice is that you think of Locust, you think of like buzzing and like fast pace thing, that there's a fast riff in that section that kind of invokes that idea of like, oh, it's locusts, that the locusts are swarming the earth and eating the crops and the people and whatever. And then Leviathan is like this big lumbering, Black Sabbath type riff that's like the monsters coming out of the sea, and it's got the 10 heads of the crowns or whatever that, I don't remember what whatever the scripture says. It comes out, and it's all this big thing. It's huge and it's theatrical, and it's like 6-something minutes long, and it's just awesome. It's got all these different musical parts, and Tyler and Caleb, they totally kicked ass, bringing that to life. So I presented the idea to them, and then they wrote it and
ran with it.
Exactly. That's what was really cool is that Tyler Bryant, first of all, is like one of the greatest guitar players that I've ever worked with. He's my age. He's a young gun guitar slinger from Texas. He's based out of Nashville. Him and his drummer Caleb, they're like some of the best musicians I've worked with, and I've worked with a ton of incredible musicians. I mean, I'm talking like they're right up there with some of the greats. and they're got a great band, Tyler Bryant and the Shakedown, really killer blues rock type stuff. And I actually worked with Tyler, I want to say it was like 6-something years ago in Nashville with him and Caleb. We jammed, and actually one of the tracks that we wrote like 6 years ago, that's on the record called Heart of Stone. And I was like, man, I walked out of that session, I was like, we got to do something together in some capacity, like whether it's a project, a band, record, whatever. And so it kind of just was stewing in my mind, in the back of my mind. I want to do this. I want to do this with him. I want to do something, creative with him. And so I texted him and said, hey, I have this idea that obviously would not work with my solo stuff. That's the thing, is like with this other stuff, and this isn't the first record I'm going to do with Tyler. This is a side thing. This is going to be an actual band. And to do these other concepts that I have that are more leaning into the kind of horror, science fiction, realm of like my artistic DNA. The solo stuff is just strictly blues, rock, gospel, soul, like that. That's where that lives. This is another chance for me to expand and like do these other ideas that I have, but that would work better in a band format and not a solo artist. In a solo artist, package, I guess is what I'm trying to say. But it sounds amazing. People are flipping out that we played it for, and I can't wait for people to hear this. And so we're kind of in the business phase of right now. I'm getting stuff worked out with the deal and all this other stuff and getting a band name for it. But I'm hoping that it'll be, the first single will be out like top of next year.
I can't wait to hear that. That's going to be really interesting, because you could go into other books of the Bible going with horror stuff. I mean, there's so much, especially in the Old Testament.
There's tons of stuff in that's terrifying and whatever. But that, for me, just to scratch my monster itch, Revelations has all the goods as far as demons and monsters and all the fun shit that I love. So and it goes hand in hand with rock and roll. So I think that it's the devil in rock and roll and all that stuff. It's like two peas in a pod, But again, it's all in fun. It's all, there's no emotional weight to it. It's just that it'll be a really cool.
We got new dates coming up soon. New tour dates.
Yes. So I'm doing a show on Saturday, the 21st in West Virginia. I have a show the 26th of August in Spindale, North Carolina. I have a show October the 4th in Iowa. I don't know where exactly, but I'll announce it. And then we have shows basically like the rest of fall in Pennsylvania, Long Island, New Jersey, Michigan, Ohio, kind of all the way up to the end of October, and then TSO to the end of the year. So TSO was actually the
I don't know if you remember this story. That was the first time I heard you sing. I had no idea who you were before that, and that was December 2021. Yeah, 21.
Oh wow.
I had no idea who you were. And it's kind of synonymous. Every time I meet you or talk to you, there's some kind of career change going on in my life. So I am looking into another position right now. Actually, literally every time I've met you, there's been some kind of career change in my life. So when we went to that show, that TSO show, I was debating whether or not to take a really big jump in my career, going from just being a floor nurse to being a regional director of nursing for 22 prisons in the state of Indiana. And I was wrestling with it. And I remember just praying in the car on the way there, like, sometimes you just need that. You need God to punch you in the face. And I'm like, I need that. I need that really big whoop. There you go. And then you came out and started singing that song. And that was it. I was like, okay, I get it. So that was the first time I heard you sing, and that was it. I was hooked from there. That was it.
That's awesome. That's really cool. What show was that?
It was in Cincinnati.
Cincinnati.
It was like December second. Yeah.
Cincinnati, that's the one. It's like with the arena's down on the river, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Yep. Yep. Yep.
Yep. And
That's awesome.
yeah,
Very cool.
that was it. But
That's
then,
cool.
yeah,
I mean,
like every time I've met you afterwards.
Yeah, that's one of the cool things about, you know, being a musician and touring and stuff, is that it's really cool to kind of see the impact that us as performers and stuff that we make, you know, on people that we love, because obviously we do this from an emotional standpoint because we love music and we love the way music speaks through us and speaks to us. And so when we do that and we're in the zone and it's like everything's working, it's a really powerful thing. It's a really cool thing too, is that, you know, and your story's awesome. And I've also heard other amazing stories from other people about, you know, their instances with me singing a song, whether it was when I was on Idol. There's, you know, songs that I don't Idol, like, oh my God, like that changed. Like my, you know, like one crazy story was like, I did a Journey song, and this husband came to me, and his wife was, you know, unfortunately died of cancer. And it was just really tragic story. And that, you know, he was like, that completely made her life, you singing that song like that. And that it was forever, that moment will be such a beautiful memory trapped in or captured in my mind. And I was just like, it's just really, it's a real honor to be able to do that. And like, you know, make people's day or make people's lives or whatever it is. You know, we don't really know that because we're in the moment, you know, expressing ourselves and doing whatever, you know, because we're music and whatever. And the cool thing is the translation from that to the audience is such a really special, you know, powerful thing. So that's a really awesome, cool story. And so I'm honored that whatever song I was singing or whatever, maybe it was Good King Joy or whatever I was doing.
That's the one it was.
That it was the light bulb switch, or, you know, whatever, come to Jesus moment. That's really cool. So
it was. It's you never fail to, anytime you open your mouth, it just makes me smile.
Awesome.
And, you know, obviously I've got, you know, Bray, he literally saved my life, but, you know, you and he did similar things for me. Just, you know, when I don't feel good or just, you know, feeling really down now, like I'll just stick you on and I'll be like, okay, I feel better.
Same thing with me, with certain artists and bands. Music is I think it's such a really powerful healer. You know, it's a mood enhancer. I have to listen to music every day. You know, it's a constant. It's a constant in my life every day. Always,
all the time. Well, thank you so much for coming on Caleb's Corner.
That's right.
You have a leg up on Bray now, because I've known him for 4 years and I still can't get him on my show. Going through WWE fire hoops, it takes forever. So you have a leg up on him now. But thank you for coming on Caleb's Corner. I really appreciate it. Good luck this weekend. Love you. And we'll see you soon.
Thanks. Great talking to you. See you, Jodie.
Bye.